and welcome. I'm Chyzhyk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. Looks like the Ukrainian market is attracting more and more attention of international investors. Over the past year, foreign direct investments in Ukraine increased by 8%, whereas capital investment into the Ukrainian economy have been growing by almost a third for 2 years in a row. To tell us more about it, we welcome to the studio today Kostyantyn Chyzhyk, Deputy Head of Office of the National Investment Council of Ukraine. Hello and thank you for joining us, Kostyantyn.
Hello.
So according to your colleague, Yulia Kovalev, she's the head of the Office of the National Investment Council of Ukraine, the Ukrainian economy received $2.5 billion of foreign direct investments over the past year. How big is this amount and what should it signal to us?
It's a reasonably large amount if you compare it to the amount of money that Ukraine has been receiving for the last 4.5 years.
Could you compare, please?
Absolutely. So if we take 2014 in particular, there was almost zero FDI, foreign direct investment, attracted to Ukraine. The figure was around $42 million, which is like 0.004 billion, compared to 2.5 that we have today. If we look at the tendency in the last 4.5 years, it's been growing. The only exception would be the year 2016, where, according to the statistics, this figure was 3.2. But a very important thing here is that not all the amount, 3.2, went to the real sector of economy. The majority of the funds went to the banking and financial sector due to recapitalization of the banking sector. Absolutely. So that was not exactly new plants or facilities or factories. Those money went to the banks, international banks, from the foreign shareholding companies, so that banks remain adequately capitalized, and so that our citizens could feel safe keeping their deposits in those banks.
So how would you evaluate this pace of foreign investments coming to Ukraine?
If we look at the global markets and the overall global situation, it would be reasonably okay. If we look at the Ukrainian situation in particular, I would say it would be a recordly high pace. What I mean by that is that if we compare the economic situation to the 2014, when we lost 1/3 of our economy due to the Russian aggression in the east and the annexation of Crimea, the fact that we are constantly increasing the number of FDI and that we have attracted overall more than 11 billion throughout the last 5 years is incredible. And in those circumstances, the figure 2.5 is absolutely enormous. At the same time, we expect in the next 5 years, with the stabilization of the political situation, to increase that number and to make it grow even faster.
What do you mean by stabilizing the political situation? Because we know that soon, in the end of March, we are having this presidential election. Then in autumn, we have the parliamentary elections. How will they reflect on the investment climate this year?
It's a very good question, because if you take any country on the planet, would it be France or Germany or the United States in particular, elections
always matter.
Absolutely. They always matter for any investor considering bringing money to the country. And Ukraine is no exception in this regard. So we expect that after elections take place, when the investors see that the political climate is absolutely stable, that the institutions that we have created throughout the last 5 years are working, and by that I mean institutions in the anti-corruption sector, financial, banking sector, economic sector, and transparency sector, as well as energy. They're operating. They're constantly increasing their efficiency. The economy is growing, so Ukraine not only remains attractive, but even becomes more attractive with each day.
Well, the Cabinet of Ministers has released the report in 2018, and in this report we could read that 7 large foreign companies announced about investment totaling $1.1 billion in the economy of Ukraine last year. So, as I understand, these companies are new partners.
Absolutely.
So they're newcomers to Ukraine. And
yes.
This amounted into $1.1 billion last year.
Yes.
So, could you tell us what countries are among the top investors into Ukraine, and what spheres are the most interesting for them?
So if we take the official statistics, it will be a little bit different from the real situation.
Okay, tell us both, please.
The official statistics say that the top three countries would be Cyprus, Netherlands, and unexpectedly Russia. How so? The official statistics accounts for the country of origin of the money. So, for example, one of the largest, actually the largest metallurgical company on the planet, ArcelorMittal, which owns Ukrainian, formerly Kryvyi metallurgy plant in Kryvyi Rih, is de facto an Indian company. But nonetheless, it is structured, registered in the Luxembourg. So when you take the investments from ArcelorMittal to its plant, officially they are considered Luxembourg, not Indian, because the company, the head company, is structured in Luxembourg. Absolutely, yeah. The same situation is with the Netherlands and Cyprus. Cyprus, at the same time, accounts for a lot of Ukrainian internal investors, people who are, let's say, considering Cyprus a more of a safe haven, tax haven for their money, and it makes for them more financial sense to bring money not directly from Ukraine to Ukraine, but via Cyprus. Absolutely. As for Russia, it's a peculiar situation. The only reason why Russia is among the top three countries is because of the recapitalization of the Russian banks that started last year, and due to the decree by the National Bank number 55, allowing Russia to recapitalize the sanctioned banks. So within the last 4 years, and in 2016-17 in particular, a large stabilization in the financial sector took place, and the cleaning of the banking sector in particular. What it means is that a lot of unsolved banks were taken out of the system, and those banks which remained should have been recapitalized so that our citizens could feel safe keeping their deposits in those banks. At the same time, Russian banks, Sberbank, VTB Bank, and others were not allowed to recapitalize due to the sanctions. And now the National Bank of Ukraine allowed this recapitalization to protect the savings of Ukrainian citizens. And this is why Russia brought a lot of money to those banks, and that accounts for Russia being in the top three. As for the real situation, on the other hand, such countries as the United States, Germany, France, they are among the key investors in the Ukrainian economy de facto.
Germany, France?
Absolutely. If we take Germany, Germany just recently opened the largest seed plant in Europe. German buyer invested more than 200 million in a new factory in Zhytomyr region.
You mean this pharmacological company? Bayer?
Yes, yes. They are involved not only in the pharmaceuticals, but also in agriculture and in chemical production and in a lot of other spheres. France, in particular, in Davos, during the second National Investment Council meeting, headed by the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, one of the largest French companies, Total Iran, one of the largest European companies in the energy sphere, signed with NBT, a large Norwegian energy company, a deal worth $430 million for the renewable energy plant in Ukraine in Chyzhyk Lake.
Great news. But okay, this is really great that you're telling to us. But how do these investments reflect onto the lives of ordinary Ukrainian people?
They bring new jobs, they bring higher salaries, they bring better standards of work, they bring infrastructure development around the plants and around the facilities that are being opened. And Bayer, the German plant that I've recently just mentioned, is a great example in particular, because they've opened a new small hospital near their plant. They repaired the kindergarten, they repaired the school, and they've built a new road not only to their plant, but also to the nearby village. And also, on top of that, they've built a special healthcare center for elderly people. So they are caring not only about their incomes or profits, but also about developing the community around them.
And the infrastructure for this community. Well, we do have only 3 minutes until the end of the program, so let's just shift really quickly onto another topic, onto capital investments. And last year, these capital investments also increased by 27%, 27.5%, and this amounts in over 500 billion hryvnias. So what economic sectors are the most interesting for capital investment?
So if you take capital investments in particular, there would be no wonder that machinery, agriculture, real estate would be among the top sectors there. At the same time, there are two different types of business models, asset heavy and asset light. In Ukraine, it could be competitive in both. If you take the asset light model, for example, IT and innovation will be a great opportunity for Ukraine also to attract investments, but not particularly capital. And as far as capital investments are concerned, the aforementioned three areas will be the top most interested. And agriculture, infrastructure, energy are also among the most prospective in the upcoming years.
Mm-hmm. But how would you evaluate the change in terms of this procedure of entering the Ukrainian market? Is it getting easier to enter the Ukrainian market? Because we know about this complicated bureaucratic systems that used to be a burden for all the businessmen, for the Ukrainian ones, and for the foreigners as well. So what can you tell us about this?
The situation in generally improved that much that Ukraine grew 41 position in the Doing Business rating. It's World Bank most renowned rating for actually evaluating how easy it is to start a new company in Ukraine.
41, and what position did it obtain before?
We're currently 71, so that means that in 2014 we were like 112-ish, something like that.
That's pretty positive.
It's pretty positive, and it continues to grow. And due to the reforms that our office in particular also worked on in the energy sector, in the financial sector, and by that I mean the new insolvency code that have been adopted by the parliament and the new procedure of connecting to the grid, we expect that next year Ukraine will increase its position at least to 5 to 10 more steps higher. So we would be around like 30, 35 in that rating.
Well, we all hope on that. Thank you so much for your clear comments, and thank you for being a guest today in our studio. Again.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Kostyantyn Chyzhyk, Deputy Head of Office of the National Investment Council of Ukraine. Thank you for watching Head to Head, and stay tuned for more with UATV.